Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. It is April 1st and time for our March reading wrap-up. Now, when I did my February reading wrap-up, I told you guys that I was going to be doing a lot of rereading in March, and that did not happen. I had a launch team book and 2 NetGalley arcs and 3 library holds all come up at the same time. So I did not have enough time to do any rereading, although I still want to, so hopefully I'll get to some in April. We'll see, no promises. But and then I had a 3rd NetGalley arc also come up. So I didn't get to there's one NetGalley arc that I did not get to in March, so I'll be reading that in April, but I got to a lot of other books in March. I actually read 8 books in March. And so without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. The first book that I read was a nonfiction, which is The Brain That Changes Itself by Doidge. This is a book that I started reading in February, and so I read it over both February and March. It's all about neuroplasticity. I picked it up because if you've been around my channel a bit, you know I have a chronic illness. I have dysautonomia, and I recently started a new treatment for that I'll be doing this year. It's a minimum of a 6-month treatment, so I just started the full rounds of treatment at the beginning of March. So now on April 1st, I just finished my first month of treatment. Woohoo! But it's all limbic system based because I read a thesis that suggested that dysautonomia was based in limbic system impairment, and the science behind it made a lot of sense to me. Doctors over the years haven't really known what causes dysautonomia, and this is like the first research that really makes sense, and that has a lot of success stories behind it, other people with dysautonomia, because dysautonomia is something that they say you can't be cured from, but there is a large number of dysautonomia and POTS patients that have done this limbic system treatment, and they say recovered instead of cured, but basically they've been able to live a very normal life afterwards. They haven't had any more symptoms, so basically they've been cured, but we can't say that word, we say recovered. Anyway, so my mom and I did a lot of research behind it and read into the science behind it, and it makes a lot of sense, and there's a lot of success stories, so I'm doing that now. And so limbic system impairment and limbic system recovery has some basis in neuroplasticity. So I read this book just to kind of give myself a better background knowledge of the science behind neuroplasticity, and it was very interesting. I gave it 4 stars. I feel like this book was kind of the history behind neuroplasticity and how scientists really got into this field and how they developed it. It talked about like the history behind discovering and researching brain mapping and neuroplasticity and all of this. So it wasn't necessarily a book about how neuroplasticity helps heal like limbic system impairment and other neuro illnesses. It was just more about the science of how it developed and things. And so I found it interesting, and I gave it 4 stars. Anyway, that was a very long explanation, but I felt like I had to give you a bunch of background on that. But anyway, the next book that I read was A Dangerous Engagement by Melanie Dickerson. This is the 3rd book in the Regency Spies of London series, which I read the first 2 books in February, so I just finished up the series at the beginning of March with this one. And I gave this one 4 stars. 4 stars. I feel like it was probably my favorite of the series. Is it? Yes. Yes, it was. I had to think, because, like, yeah. It was my favorite of the series. I feel like this one had the most actual spying in it. I know I mentioned in my February video that the first two, like, the first one had a little bit of spying, but it was kind of here and there, and the second one I didn't feel like had very much spying, but this one was actually about spying and espionage, and I was like, okay, here we go. So it was my favorite of the series just for that, because I felt like it was the most true to what the series was supposed to be. But I also liked the relationships and the characters and all of that. So the third book that I read in March was Northargyle, Abbie by Janelle Leonard, and I was on the launch team for this from White Crown. It was super fun. It is a Northanger Abbey modern retelling, and it is the first book in the Royally Austen series. So it's like, it's royal fiction, but they're also Jane Austen retellings. So this one was a Northanger Abbey retelling, and it was really good. It was fun. I enjoyed the characters. I enjoyed the setting. It's set in Australia, which is fun. I gave it 4 stars. I don't know if I said that already. I gave it 4 stars. And I will say that, you know, you read different kinds of retellings. Some retellings are like, some classic retellings are more like inspired by, so there are some things that came from the original text and other things that are very new and very fresh. This one was definitely more of a retelling, so there were a lot of like one-for-ones taken from Northanger Abbey and put into Northargyle Abbey. Like, excuse me. Like, some of the side characters and the side character storylines were definitely copy and paste almost. And so when it came to certain like plot points and plot twists, if you know the original work, it won't be a twist to you, and I will tell you that. But then there were other things that she did add a twist on and that I really appreciated, that I felt like gave it a new fun twist to it. So it wasn't a complete like modern copy and paste at all. There were definitely new twists to it and a new mystery kind of involved that I really liked. I really liked the mystery with Abbie and her grandmother and all of that, and I don't want to go into too much into it because I don't want to spoil it, but she's got this mystery involving her grandmother that sends her to Australia, and that was new and a new twist to it, and so I really like that. I will say that it took me a while to get through it simply because there was one thing that happens in the original in Northanger Abbey that is so cringy, and I knew that it was going to happen in this book. So I read the first 2/3 of the book really quickly, and then when I started getting hints of this plot point being in there, I was like, oh, I wish she had left this plot point out. And I know it's a big plot point in the original story, but I was like, we could have done away with it. So I read the last third of the book really slowly up until that plot point because I did not want to get there. And if you've read the original work or seen Northanger Abbey, I haven't actually read Northanger Abbey, but I've seen the movie with J.J. Field as Mr. Tilney. And so you know a certain accusation is made, and that's all I'm going to say, because if you haven't read or seen the original, I don't want to spoil this book for you, but it's a really cringy accusation, and I was like, oh, I don't want this to happen, I don't want this to happen. But then once I got past that accusation, then I read the last part of the book really quickly again, because it was really interesting. So anyway, I gave that one 4 stars. And I was like, wow, I'm just giving everything 4 stars this month. Until this next book, which is The Indigo Heiress by Laura Frantz. This is one of my library books. First of all, please admire the cover, because I think this is one of my favorite covers of the year so far. It is so gorgeous, in my opinion. And so this book takes place partly in colonial Virginia and partly in Scotland. And it is so good. I gave this one 4.5 stars. So we finally broke our 4-star streak for the month. And I absolutely loved it. It was so good. I love Juliet and Leith. He was great. I love the plot. It was just really good, and I enjoyed this book, and I love the cover, and I love this setting, the Scottish setting. Laura Frantz writes such vivid descriptions of settings. Like, I always feel transported when I read her books, and it was so visually beautiful, and the plot and the romance and the characters were all good too, but I love her setting descriptions. Like, they're just on another level. So that one was really, really good. The next one was also a library book, which was Undeniably Yours by Becky Wade. This is my first Becky Wade book. She is a part of the, it's got a long name. It's like inspired by life and fiction or something, or life, faith, and fiction. Something like that. It's like a group of authors that do a blog together and they take turns, and so she's on it, Danny Petrie's on it, Karen Whitemeyer's on it, I think Tamara Alexander is on it. It's just a group of authors that do this blog together, and I've never read a Becky Wade book, but I always enjoy reading the blogs when I actually sit down and read them and don't just delete the email. I enjoy them. Do you guys ever do that? You get so many blogs that you just wake up in the morning and you're like, delete email, delete email, delete email. But then when you actually sit down and read the email, you actually really enjoy your blog and the blog, and you're like, I want to read more of this. But then the next day you just like delete it again. I do that. But when I do read the blog, I really enjoy their writing. And so anyway, they announced in the blog that Becky Wade and Danny Petrie are doing a small book tour around Texas and speaking in different places. And they're coming near to where I live in April, so I'm going to see them in April. So I was like, well, I have to read a book from them if I'm going to go see them speak. So I got this book from Becky Wade. I'm not going to read a Danny Petrie book because she writes suspense, and I don't really like suspense. But I did pick up this from Becky Wade, and it's Undeniably Yours. It's the first book in a series. I think it's like Porter? Like the Porter family or the Porter siblings. Does it say in here? It does not say, but it is the first book in a Porter family, Porter sibling kind of series, and I gave it 4 stars. We're back to 4 stars now, and I really enjoyed it. It's a modern kind of cowboy ranch fairy romance set in Texas, and yeah, I gave it 4 stars. It got really intense at the end, and it was kind of unexpected, so, like, trigger warning, there is, like, a kidnapping in the end, a little bit of violence, which, I mean, I read that in books a lot, but I usually kind of expect it. Like, I expect kind of a more suspenseful story, and this one was very lighthearted up for most of it, so that part kind of hit me out of nowhere. So I did want to give you that trigger warning, because I don't think that you would know it going into this book, whereas, like, other kind of books you would expect it going in. So there's that. I will say one thing about this book is that they're on a ranch in North Texas, and it's like May or something like that. Like, I mean, it's late spring, and they're like wearing sweaters all the time. And I'm like, what is this? This is Texas, people. They should not be in sweaters. But anyway, that was just my personal and little nitpicky thing as somebody who's from Texas. So the next book I read, I believe we are on 6 now, is A Truth Revealed by Tracie Peterson. This is, I'd say it's her newest release, but she releases books so quickly that I don't even know if this is the newest release. It was released like a couple months ago, in like January or February. Does it say? I don't know. Maybe it was released in late 2024. Oh, November of 2024. It says it on the little library sticker. Okay, so it's probably not her newest release because she releases books quite frequently. This is the 3rd book in the Heart of Cheyenne series. I did read the first 2, but I read them as they came out, so it's been several months since I read them, so I kind of forgotten what happened which is not too bad because the characters are side characters in this book, so they like live in the town, but it's not too important to know what happens in their story, so it was okay that I kind of forgot what happened. But okay, I'm gonna apologize for this ahead of time, but I gave this book 2.75 stars. I did not like this book. And that's not anything against Tracie Peterson. I have been reading Tracie Peterson since high school, and I love her books typically. I don't know why this book was just a huge miss for me. It's very unusual for a Tracie Peterson book to be a miss for me. But then again, she's got like a lot of books on her name, like probably more than 100 books published. I don't know exactly how many, but I would guess somewhere around 100 or more. So I guess it makes sense that out of all those books, there would be one or two that I wouldn't like, because reading is very subjective. And so on that, in that view, I guess it's okay. But on the other hand, I'm like, wow, I can't believe that I didn't like this Tracie Peterson book. I usually really enjoy her books, and I felt so bad. Like I've been trying to write a review for every book I read on Goodreads, and I did not even write a review for this one because I was like, I don't even know what I can say really good about this book, and I don't want to write a review if I can't say anything really good about it. And like, I just felt, I thought it was a really interesting, I'm gonna sneeze. I thought it was a really interesting plot idea. I mean, it's about like this girl, and she's finished college, and she's coming to live with her father in Cheyenne, and she hasn't seen her father in like 12 years because he sent her away to boarding school when she was 12 when her mom died, but she's built him up as this hero in her mind, and so she's so excited to come and live with him. But then she finds out that he's not the hero she made him out to be. He's actually like not a good guy, and so she kind of her idea of him is bashed a little bit. And then we have a man who wants to preach to the Native American reservation, and she accidentally hits him with her wagon, and then she takes him home to nurse him back to health. So the idea of the plot was really interesting, but I felt like the pacing was really off. The main big plot happens in like the final 50 pages of the book, and the first 200 to 220 pages it's just really slow build up, and I just felt like I was really bored the first 200 pages. And then in the last 50 pages, you've got this whole big scheme about bringing this criminal to light and all this stuff, and that was really rushed. So rushed that we had to bring in this almost Deus Ex Machina kind of plot savior in order to bring the criminal to justice that we didn't have beforehand, that wasn't even foreshadowed beforehand. Like, it just came out of nowhere because we had to wrap it up so fast. And I was like, the first 220 pages of the books, I'm like, wow, this is going really slowly. And then the last 50 pages of the book, I am like, what is happening? We are just rolling towards the finish line all of a sudden. And so, yeah, I didn't love this book. And I'm sorry, because I really do typically enjoy Tracie Peterson, and I feel so bad giving it such a low score, but that was just my opinion. So, the next book, number 7 on our list, is The Lawyer and the Laundress by Christine Hills Suntz. This was a NetGalley arc that I got. It's my first Christine Hills Suntz books, and I absolutely adored it. I gave it like 5 stars. It was so good. I loved all of the characters. It is a historical fiction novel about a woman who works as a laundress, a washerwoman behind an inn. But there's definitely more to her story than that. She's got some mystery wrapped up in her. And there is a lawyer who, he sends his daughter to take lessons at the inn with the innkeeper's daughters, but his daughter does not like the lessons, so she keeps sneaking out to talk with our laundress, our washerwoman, Sarah. And so Evie, that's the little girl's name, Evie and Sarah become close friends, but then when the lawyer finds out, he's like, she is not appropriate for you. You need to not do this, but then he decides to take his daughter home. But then his daughter gets sick, and he realizes that the only person who can help her is Sarah. And so he calls her to nurse her and then to eventually become her governess. And things kind of go from there. And it's so good. It's so good. I gave it 5 stars. I absolutely loved it. It was my favorite of all the books that I read in March. It was excellent. And when it comes out, I forget the day it comes out. I think in May. No. It might have an April release date. It's either April or May. I forget the exact date. But when it does come out, it could be June. It might not come out till June. Okay, I obviously have no idea, so don't listen to me. But when it does come out, I definitely recommend you guys checking it out whenever that may be. And then the final book that I read this month, number 8, was To Kiss a Night by Grace Hitchcock. And I am on the launch team for this in May, but I got started on my NetGalley arc early, and I read it in like the last 3 days of March. 3 days, 4 days, I don't know how long. But so I'm already done with it and ready for my launch team tasks in May. And yeah, I gave it 5 stars. It's so good. It's the second book in her, what is the name of the series? Best Laid Plans, I believe. And it follows a female authoress. It takes place in Regency, England, in case you don't know the series. And it follows this girl is an authoress, and she writes under a pen name, and her pen name is Lady Larkby, which she assumes, she did her research when she started writing 3 years ago, and she thought that this peerage, the Larkby family, was like extinct, so she thought it would be fine to write under this name, but it is not extinct. And now we have our main character, Sebastian, who is like, finds out that there's this authoress writing under his name, and he's like, wow, I had no idea I had a wife, let me go find her and see why she is using my name. And it just takes off from there. And this book was so fun. I laughed so much. And it drops you in the middle of the action. And I won't say how it starts, but I would just say it is like in the middle of the action. And you were like, wow, okay, we are taking off from the beginning. And it is just a ride from the beginning till the end. And it is so funny. I was laughing out loud. I gave it 5 stars. It was really good. Okay. That was all 8 books that I read in March. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I will see you in April.